Okay, all systems go. We ready for liftoff. So I think I left off at getting my notes to appear properly. So just give me a quick second. I'm excited. I'm always excited. I'm always juiced up. I got to stay in a very perfect level of connection, and it's just because a lot of things around me are becoming more sure of themselves and more sure of itself. So let me just do this really quick, because I'm absolutely sure of what we have going on, and I'm absolutely sure of what we're here to do. There we go. Okay, so it looks like I have two set of notes with the same title, so I guess that's what the confusion is. Okay, so she wants to start over with the honoring the station manager, so why not? I can have 20,000 honorings right now and benefit from every single one of those. So we're going to take this time to walk down the ladder to get to the first step, and then step on the floor with our shoes off, with our backs erect on the astral plane, to connect into this space and time that we're in, that we've been so trained for. We're guided, or else we wouldn't be here now in this stage of awareness. A lot of work has been put in each one of us from on high, a lot of projections, a lot of beams, a lot of light, a lot of wisdom sent into the space. And as you are a cistern, a vessel, a urn, you can hold all of that power, all that full spectrum energy that your ancestors gave you for something, not just to sit there and watch it all go by, but to realize that the greatest thing that you can do within. Never forget that. It's one of the most important things, that the greatest power you have is inside. It's 7 times stronger than the external. And so in these times that we're in, which allows you to see clearly, that you'll be able to see yourself clearly. You'll be able to see what your wisdom has produced. You'll be able to watch yourself. But also remember, something is watching, and that is the true you. You are the observer. You are here for many reasons, not just one reason. You don't just have one purpose. You solve so many things by your presence. So we want to give thanks also again to the ancestors who course through our veins, who course through our DNA. They are not something external only. They are internal. They are here with us now, taking us through the same process that they went through to gain such a level of vast awareness. And also appreciation. Appreciation is a big thing. You know, you never miss what you have till it's gone sometimes, but we don't have to repeat that lesson. We can come into a great level of appreciation for what's around us, the air we breathe, the health that we have, and all those beautiful beings that are reflections around us that we have an opportunity to share with and care with and feel their comfort. This is the realest it gets. This is actuality. It's 2020. Not only seeing clear to the reality, who these people really are, that say they care about us, that say that they're taking care of us. And also, most importantly, who we are, what we're really made out of. When things get very clear and real to us, how we act, so that we can make the adjustments necessary to continue to grow. And always remember, everything is growth for the soul. Everything is growth for the soul. So now I'm gonna put my first foot on from the ground onto that ladder as we get ready to ascend into consciousness and ascend into our awareness, our clarity again, as we come out of the densities and we reach into the particles and then the clear essence of our higher minds. But also as we make that ascent, that we keep our tether connected to the earth, that we keep our umbilical cord planted inside of the earth. We're not going to cut it. We're not going to abandon it. We're not going to forsake it, because that only shows our own character. We're going to plug into it, and we're going to allow it to nurture us, and we're going to respect it by continuously showing it that we are here, we're aware, we're listening, and we're going to do that through our actions, not just through our minds. We're going to do that through our actions, which is the ultimate confirmation that you agree. Your actions are the pact. So, as we begin, we talked about 2020 and seeing clearly. I said that in the honoring. And it's most important to remember that this is what we already talked about was going to happen. And now today, you get a chance to go forward with taking many things literal and metaphysical to get a full picture of what we're saying. So when we say, okay, I need to see things clearly, like remember, that's not just for you. It's for the entire world. So because the whole world has to come to a point of seeing things clearly, what things really are. Because remember, we were transmitting this message across YouTube and we explained what things really were. Some people took that knowledge and wisdom and began to apply it in their lives. Others used it as a form of entertainment. So things are not necessarily clear for them. So the reality seeks to actually make it clear in every single form and aspect of life, from the old paradigm that those that have been here on earth have been engaging in. It will cease. Now, of course, when the prophecies come forward and say that, nobody is anticipating that's really going to happen. Nobody knows the day nor hour. I always joke, it's like crypto. No one really knows when the charts are going to go up. And because of that, the only fortification that we have is to remain prepared. We talked about in the Mamos, the Wisdom of the Mamos, part 1, alert and relaxed, and how those two complement each other, how the great masters and the great meditators, they know about the state of being relaxed, but alert. So I'm not going to go over that again. Check out Wisdom of the Mamos part 1. This is Wisdom of the Mamos part 2. And this is about a journey that I took and many around me with the Mamos and the wisdom that they gave us at this stage of the beginning of a process that we're going to assist them with and they're going to assist us with bringing a greater level of awareness on how to treat Earth. What to really do for her, because we are seeing very clearly that what we do with the earth directly reflects on what is done for us. Earth is a quantifier. You plant one seed and 1,000 things come forward. Think about that. Like in the masculine traditions of the masculine Bibles, which are inverted off a bit because the creative component is placed within the male, they talk about God's blessings being pressed down and running over in 1,000-fold. They're talking about Earth. They're talking about the mother. They're talking about when you pay attention to what is going on here underneath your feet and you send a form of communication through you that is not English into it, it not only responds, it brings forth abundance and joy because it's happy that you learned how to communicate again. So this whole process is about, okay, my child, you can go ahead and go out into the world. You can squander all your riches and your gifts, which is your chakras and your sexual potential and all the different things that you have, your skills. You can squander them out in this, okay, I'm going to go and make a commercial for Apple. I'm going to go and, build a car for Ford. I'm going to take all these gifts and powers that the mother gave me, and I'm going to go and use them in the world. And of course, they get squandered. You get abused. Pretty soon you're in debt and you're broke. Not just broke from a monetary level, but broke internally and confused about who you are and where you're going. So, of course, it's all a part of the process because you had to leave to know you never left. You have to disconnect to learn there's no such thing as a disconnection. We have to individually go through the process of rejecting even what is for us in order to discern what that truly is. And we explain that about how we have all these powers, but we don't know what they do, nor have we been put in a situation where we need to use them. So what remains? A lesson. That's why we call it the university, or the universe. Comes through with a lesson to teach you what your powers do. So situations need to be created. Yins must have yangs. This is again the descent of even, Ninurtu, Inanna, and all the ancient feminine goddesses, where they take off their dresses, they take off their earrings. This is implication of the flesh, the descent into flesh. That's why it could be confusing for the neophyte, because he's like, oh, was this a woman and she's descending? How does that have to do with me? Well, you're in a physical body. You're flesh. You're an urn. You're a vessel. That's the feminine. So as the feminine is descending, or the spirit is descending, all of the earrings, the dress, the crown, all of this is removed. This is like on high, if you may, you have all of that. But as you descend into dense matter, it all slows down and you just start seeing only the shadows of it. Then it feels like you're laid bare. No more powers, no more ability. It's all a perception, but this is what it seems like as you made your payment with your raiments. Your raiments are your clothing, your regalia. That was your payment for these lessons, to learn, why do I need these chakras? Why do I need an aura, like a protective field and energy around me? Why do I need this stuff? So the lessons have presented themselves, and they're presenting themselves very clearly. I'm sure you would agree. So going forward from there, in that level of awareness, we're now in the thick of it. I'm not here to give you a 101. 101s have already been delivered. 102s, 202s, 201s, those have already been delivered. Now we're at level 9. The total graduation. Great. Thanks. We give thanks. Right? And we've learned so many things, like even the sorrows. We will be thankful for that when there's now no more feelings, because everything is unified. There's no differentiation between one thing and another. We're like, man, I'll give thanks I had that time of the feelings. Now I'm going to go forward into something else that can't be explained. But all of that I'm truly appreciative and grateful for. So what I mean by we're in the thick of it is that now we can only discern the main things that are happening. We can't go back to the small stuff. Hopefully you've learned those lessons. We got to go into the main things. So the main thing that we need to address right away is what's happening on the planet. Why is the planet not defending itself? Why is the planet not healing itself? What's happening? Especially since we already revealed that the one that nourishes is stronger than the one that is being nourished. Again, the one that nourishes is stronger than the one being nourished. So the earth is way more powerful. If you don't think so, go stand out in one of them Hawaii waves thinking you really going to save the earth. Go jump on one of these fault lines when the earthquakes happen to think you're going to save the earth. Okay? So earth has more than enough power to do something. So go a step further. Play the role of the psychologist, if you may. What is a step further? Why wouldn't the earth protect itself? Well, it probably would attack its own children. And that's why we know Earth's rapport. We know Earth's relationship. Earth does not kill. Earth gives life. Anybody who was saying they were killing in the name of the earth, they weren't doing that for Earth. Earth is not a killer, or else we wouldn't have all this life. So because of that, Earth cannot use that form of attempting to correct the situation. Earth does not hurt and kill to try to fix a situation. Okay, this should be very clear. There's others that use that tactic, but not Earth, not the mother. So all of these beings are her children because of one key component that we're calling the spirit, which is really what we call blood. It exists within all beings. There's a form of blood, and those elements and those DNAs is what directly connects us to her. And because of that, this means that she feels this connection with us, and she knows it's us doing this, and this is just producing certain levels of confusion. Why, if you love me, are you beating on me? Are you hurting me? Why, if you're a part of me, are you hurting me? What kind of sense does that make? Why will we destroy the same thing that is feeding us? What kind of madness is this? That was the first virus. Okay? Like, people are talking about this virus. It's like, man, what? There's a virus that's already infected most of the beings on the planet. And this virus has them believing things that are not true. And so with this other virus, this corona or Sun's auric virus, is actually to fix the bigger virus. As I said, just always remember what I told you. Never will you see something crazy happening, madness, evil, despair, distortion, whatever, and there's not a huge repository of high vibration, positivity, clarity, all that building up somewhere. You just need to know how to tap it. You cannot get distracted in this mission with not knowing who you are. Know who you are. And as things turn up, you keep turning it up. Things get crazy, I'm going right into deep magic then. Like, I'm going to be in there crying then. I'm going to be in there entreating a greater level of power that I know can only be accessed when certain things like that happen. There's very key fundamentals here to occultism. And these key fundamentals are that in order to bring up great levels of power and energy that create what people call miracles, when you move rock, stones, when other entities come down right away in front of you, when papers disappear, when people thought that they were going to see you and now you're invisible, that power is a very real power. You've read enough about it, right? But it only can be interacted when the soul and the spirit and the body are into such an alignment, like, yo, something's happening. I need to really call this power. So the power comes forth. But if you're just trying to pay rent with it, if you're just trying to get a better mate with it, well, that's not what it's for. And in fact, it was known to be terrible if you tried to use it that way. And that just means it didn't work. Now we're in a time that is great, because the actual essence that's coming off the beings right now and starting to come off the beings is like they really are waking up. Okay? And as this happens, you see the smog is at an all-time low. So the heavens are going to keep being more revealed. Remember what they were saying about this dark night that was going to take place at the end of 2020? Right? This is coming about because there's going to be so little pollution, so little emissions and cloud. We talked about how people's ideas and thoughts, when they're busy, they create clouds, etheric clouds. So all those clouds are going to be clear. And then the heavens are going to be opened up, not because they weren't always open. Like I said, 2012 happens when you're ready. It's going to be because you'll be able to see directly and clearly and feel directly and clearly what the truth is. So don't subscribe for one moment that you're in a doomsday scenario from an apocalyptic movie that they put up in Hollywood. That is the programs that they were sending into the brain to maybe, everybody's guessing on what is going to come next. But it's not about what's going to come next for everybody else. It's about what's going to come next for you. And as you keep projecting into this field of awareness, you're going to put the energy around all of what it is that you're going to manifest, because you're finally going to have the energy that is necessary to manifest that. It's so clear. But when one is foggy, when one has been listening to the blind one that cannot see, the one-eyed tube, right? It cannot see. It's like when you're watching news, they cannot see you. You only see it. That makes it blind. So you'll get all of the riddles. They'll lay bare in front of you. Oh, now I see the deepest meaning and the highest meaning of these terms. And this will put you in a certain stage of awareness that will metamorphosize your entire being. It will unlock things in you. This is the metamorphosis. Welcome to the metamorphosis. And I am here with you. I will always be here with you on all states, shapes, forms spaces that I've been able to access, make friends, cohabit with. I will be there. And so let's keep going into this. So why is this happening? Because now that's the internal, okay? That's to put you into your proper place internally, right? This is the twofold mission here. We have what's going on internally and what you need to do with yourself. And then we have the external situation of what we need to do with the children, or basically the product of the creation, the germination, okay? So the germination, it needs consistent tilling, gardening, order, rules, boundaries, so that it can be raised upright, separating the wheat from the chaff, the weeds from the things that we can eat, pulling off the vines from choking out the trees, all of that stuff. That's the husbandry. That is the divine masculine side of you that has a mission here. Okay? So now look and divine very briefly why. As I said earlier, why isn't the mother really doing anything? Well, the mother is kind of like, if you could see it as an imagery, she's just kind of there and the kids are still beating on her. And she's kind of like in shock at this stage. She can't destroy the children. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know why they're responding. Now, the grandmothers are already aware of what's going on and know the process. The mother is being initiated into becoming a grandmother. Okay? The mother, as we talked about in Mamos Part 1, the mother versus the mother versus the grandmother in ideals, because we use these words interchangeably, but in the ancient language they weren't. A uru, a saga, a sar, all of those were totally different. A sarah, all of those were totally different, and they were stages of the divine feminine. Now we just use the word the mother, and hey, that's English for you. It's cut and dry. It doesn't have much emotion and connection with it at all. It's not guttural. It does not touch this part so you can create completely. It does. This is the whole creation component inside of this, right? So it only touches like here, most of the words. It doesn't come from here. So it's not a full evocation. And because of that, all of our words are halved. They're D's, as we talk about. They're not circles, they're D's. It's only half of what we have. So because of that, this sometimes gets our perceptions off. And so when we tap into the mother, that mates this other side of us that puts our projections very clearly. So I'm going to keep going here. So divining what is happening is as simple as seeing that there are First Nations. I love this term because of this word indigenous. It has some issues. I've been looking at it, and I've been looking at it for a long time. As we talked about the word indigent. Give me a second here. Indigent. And how that has to do with being poor, having nothing, okay? And but there's another word that was being used in the ceremonies that I was participating in, and it was the First Nations, the Second Nations. And these words were much more perfect because it explains like the genealogy about, let's say, the children who know how to relate to a mother the most because they were like the closest to mother. And as the generations continue, these are like the rings of Atlantis. These are like the rings of a tree. As more of these rings are created, now it's only on the things that are on the outskirts are less aware of what is going on in the center. That's why we said the power actually comes from the center. That's why you make your journey from one of those outer Atlantic rings, if you may, back into the center of the tree in order to find your origins. And this is happening metaphysically. This doesn't happen physically where you're going to go walk off somewhere and go to the center or something. That's buffoonery. It's happening inside of you. You walk to the center of yourself. And this is why, though, because when you're on the outskirts, like they say, Earth is on the furthest ring of the galaxy out in the Orion and Crab Nebula, blah, 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 blah. And they got everybody way out here. And that's pretty much where the consciousness is of the awareness of who they truly are. Now it's time to make that journey. That journey is uphill. We see this like a cut tree. This tree is not cut. So this means this tree is going up like this, like Jack and the Beanstalk. And now you have to climb from an outer ring, which is like the out of the mountain, up to the top of yourself. Okay? So it's an uphill scenario in this. So there's a challenge here. Okay? So now, as we're talking about here, we're divining, of course, that the mother is in her state, she's going through now a birthing process of herself. See, we were so selfish. We were thinking that we were just the ones being birthed and going into the next stage, and the mother was ushering us through that process. But lo and behold, mother is also being birthed. Of course, duh, it would all happen at the same time. All of us would be birthed. And mother is going to grandmother. Grandmother is going to androgynon and beyond. You see what I mean? So everything is going up, let's say, a notch as new things come in. There's a new being coming to the center here in a moment. Right? So what the originals are returning to the center here in a moment. The originals are already making their pilgrimage in their consciousness. These people got hooked on an external version of going to the center and the navel of earth. This is the Hajj. It's about to be Hajj now. It's canceled. Nobody is going to be going. The Kaaba is clean because this is that whole masculine external aspect of things. It's laid waste. Now people are going to walk to the center of themselves. Do you see how amazing that is? They're going to still make the pilgrimage now in their mind. They're going to remember that there were female goddesses inside of that Kaaba. And this is going to create a shift. Now, will that shift happen for everybody? I don't know. I don't care. If I could answer that question, it wouldn't change things in retrospect. It's really about, is the shift going to happen for you? And do you know you're on the cusp of it and that it's also taking place? And do you see it as that, or do you see it as what they keep talking about out here? They're like, it's weird. It's like a real hypnosis kind of mind control. It's like saying the same word over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. And then pretty soon it's like everybody is saying this word. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You guys are evoking something. So since it's being evoked as the master of demons, remember, you got people here that they're on the path 6. There's more path 6s than anywhere else in the world. Any other numbers in the world, there's more path 6. Path 6 is Shukra, the master of demons. So anything they keep evoking in their density and ignorance, they don't understand that there's beings already calibrated here to harness the energy of that. So it's just like what they say, talk about these dragons. You know, the dragon is all powerful and the dragon's got all this strength. And then they're afraid of the dragon. It's like, no, you cannot fear. You shall not fear. The dragon is but another vehicle to ride through the stars, not something that should be telling you what to do. That's also about Kundalini. Kundalini is the power to ascend you to the top of the mountain. Like, you don't have to hike this barefooted. Like, you know, I get the whole humility, but you can ride a vehicle up. You have a vehicle. You got an elevator, literally. Bird gods that take command. You just jump right on the back and you're right up there. But you need to know why you're going up there, though. This is not something. This is not play. This is not one of your role-playing games. This is not an iPad game for you. This is the real deal. So you need to have a reason to enter the presence. Okay? And this is, of course, if you want to ascend and descend the ladder. Some people will enter the presence and will not descend the ladder. Again, there are people that are leaving right now, supposedly, and they're probably won't be descending the ladder in this epoch, in this term, this era that we're actually in. But if you want to behold, I come up and down, now you're in the right place, because that's exactly what we talk about. This is still a depth level. We're already at, as I said, level 9. So let's keep going. We're answering only one question here first, is why is the mother in this phase? Because now she's in labor. And the First Nations are responsible, because labor is like an earthquake. Right? So the First Nations are responsible for being there with her because she recognizes them. Now, this doesn't mean that First Nation can't be you, okay? First Nation is a frequency. Like they said, Mamos is a frequency. It's a way of being. So First Nation as a way of being is that you're tapping into Earth. You're giving Earth flowers. You're kissing Earth. Like I go out now, my new thing is I water the Earth in this area that it feels just water. And I'm faithful. I make my pilgrimage every morning to water this space and, we're going to do some grass over there and plant some sprouts and all these different things, right? And this is putting yourself into the First Nation frequency. Now, what happens, though, is you'll notice our mind is a bit troubled. So even when we're out there, that's why it's important to practice this. Because the mind will constantly go to other things, constantly be pulled back into the world, constantly be pulled into the frequencies and the Wi-Fis that are all distracting things. And then what happens is when you start detaching from what you're doing with the earth, you detach the cable or the antenna that allows her to be able to feel you and communicate with you. And when that happens, it doesn't feel like to her that you're connected. Okay? She doesn't feel you. Okay? So this is hidden within the mysteries of grounding. Okay? What do we mean by grounding? In grounding, not only are you putting your feet on the ground, we've learned a lot about grounding from the grounding documentary, right? But what's also happening is when you ground, you're being able to tune into what is happening really around you. Why is this important for spiritual people? Because normally they're not grounded. Spiritual people are way up here. They're talking about worlds to come, things that we can do. They're doing a lot of talking because that's all here up here. Like the mouth rules the head. So there's like the tongue rules the head. So it's like talking. But who would have to manifest that? Well, the hands have to manifest that. The feet, they're the first ones that get the job, walk over here. So the manifesting happens from the lower areas of the body. So if you have a person that's just talking, they're not grounded. You've seen this before. And nothing else. Like when you say, hey, sister, can we go down and feed these? No, brother, I don't surround myself around those energies. I just work here in my space. And that's fine. They're holding space. But again, this is full spectrum mastery here. So ground, which is what the major masters teach. Like, they'll sit you in a chair for meditation in the beginning. And every time you take your feet off the ground, they'll remind you, hey, you're going to sit in that chair until you stop taking your feet off the ground. Because you'll notice that as you're meditating, if you sit in a chair, you'll have this thing where you'll end up picking your feet up on the tip of your feet, like this. Just watch yourself. You'll do like this. And this is because on the sole of your feet, there's the torsion field is coming out from the sole of your feet and the top of your head. So when the energy increases from the meditation, the feet is like you're flying. So you have a tendency and you don't know what's happening consciously, but subconsciously the feet will come up. And then the master will say, put your feet down on the ground. You cannot leave here until you learn to not put your feet on the ground. And then what they're saying is to not take your feet off the ground, because what they're saying is when you turn on the power, if you take your feet off the ground, you'll loop. You'll basically come detached. And many have. They're totally out of touch with what's happening right now. They're proclaiming and predicting and saying all these things, and they're not grounded. Right? So this is why it's so important, because what ground does is it lets you see what's going on around you. Now, the reason why this is a mystery is because if you have a higher state of consciousness, but and you're communicating with the mother to this higher state of consciousness, and you're not grounding into the mother, you don't make a complete circuit. You don't make a complete communication. So this is what's happening. You have the First Nations, which are numerous. Now, remember, this is a big world. So this is not one person's job. You have all these tribes that all pretty much have the same story. They say that they are with the heart of the mother. And I believe them. I just realized that the heart is omniscient. Some of them are still yet to figure that out. They cherish that so much, they feel like it's only theirs and only with them. And I get that. That's kind of like an ultimate love for something, and you don't want anybody to share it. So I get where that comes, or have a part of it. I get where that comes from. But there are many lands that say the same thing, that they are there in the heart and they are with the mother. So this is what's happening. So the First Nations who are on top of the mountain. Now remember this, I'm explaining all the esoteric mysteries here. They're on top of the mountain, basically. In their consciousness, in their awareness, they're on top of the mountain. They're already in the center, if you may. Okay? They've retreated to the center. So when chaos and confusion is happening, just like the story of the Mamos, They went up higher and higher on their mountain. And then everybody down there, like the army and all that, was like, look, as long as they stay up there, because there's nothing up there we want. That's cool. So higher forms of consciousness, First Nations already went to the top of the mountain and set up there. Just like Tibetan masters, they went to the top of the Himalayas. And up there, you get rid of a lot of your desires and needs. One goji berry will do it for the rest of the day. The level of oxygen is so rich with certain particles and things that the Kundalini needs, you can sustain the vehicle off of a higher level of consumption there. Okay, so I'm just making all this make sense for you. I'm just covering all bases here so you realize this and you don't go into no hocus pocus. So these First Nations went to the top of the mountain. You have indigenous that were doing this, First Nations. Correct the speech. You got First Nations that were doing this in Canada, First Nations that were doing this in Mexico, First Nations in the United States, or what we would call the Native America, right? Peru, every place around the world, First Nations on top of mountains holding space connected with Mother, okay? Why are they doing this? Because Mother, as a living being, needs someone to talk to. And when she talks to her children, she feels at ease. She feels happy. And that's how she keeps giving abundance. That's how she regulates the weather patterns. That's how all of this, as an amazing, beautiful reality, where the core fundamentals to life that we all need and exist on, no matter how far we get out there with the technologies and all that kind of stuff, we know that we need love, we need connection with others, camaraderie, trust. We need those kind of things. Those are the most valuable things to us. So the First Nations, they are holding that space and have been holding that space in vibration. Through the love they're giving to the Mother, she quantifies that and gives that to everyone. Okay, I don't want you to watch what's happening here. That way, if somebody asks you, as the Mamos told me, hey, you need to be able to tell people about this in your own way in order to communicate to them what is happening. So I would say, okay, great. I'm really good at doing that. I have the vernacular and I have the spiritual awareness, so I can really explain what's happening in my own way. So as we continue, what you find is that now the First Nations are the ones that are grounded, communicating with Mother. Mother is being abundant. She's being fertile. This is feeding second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and on down the line, generations, like a tree. But something's happening right now. It's a standard war tactic. And this is why there may be some oppositions. It could be only a other part of self. It's the part of us. It could be none other than another part of self. The part of us that is a bit destructive, a bit chaotic, right? That part is congealed in something. And even there are those who've learned how to pull from that field of chaos. A part of us that is not in order. So that force, which is called the Horde, it has many names. We'll just call it the Horde today. So that force has been growing and has been going to war with the opposing form of consciousness, which is always one. Abundance, growth, health, love, all those energies are way more stronger. It always wins. It will continue to win. However, as that force gets stronger, it now must be put in place. It must be put in check because it uses war tactics. And this is the same thing that you see in, is that Machiavelli, the Prince? No, it's another book, but it starts to explain war tactics from the samurai, the martial arts that were being used on even the metaphysical planes. And a part of those war tactics, because they're basically all the knowledges of abundance inverted into decay. So it's like copying off of nature, but flipping the life-giving component and putting into a life, something that takes away life. Okay, so in this system of awareness and knowledge, there's an art of being able to flush out the enemy. Okay, now mind you, this is a distorted, twisted state of mind, but you need to know what's happening. Because if you perceive that there is an enemy, now you have been assailed. To the mages, there is no enemy because one can control all things, all elements. I know the boss of your demon. And I know what thwarts him. That's the knowledge of Solomon as a metaphor. I know your angel and I know your demon. So that cancels them out. So they have no effect. That is the world of the mages. So those who operate as if they have an enemy, those are the ones that are at war. Okay. So when they're at war, they develop war tactics. And in these war tactics is, okay, well, if our enemy is on the top of the mountain and will not come down, and we cannot go up there, let's cut off all resources to the center of the mountain. Okay, that's a war tactic. So how would the horde go about cutting off all the resources that the mother needs at the center of the mountain to continue to nourish us? They would be able to do this by disturbing the minds from the outer ring, changing their perceptions about what exactly is happening and what is going on until it starts to infect all the way to a point where it begins to affect the center of the ring. Okay? Is everybody following me here? Is this making sense to you? Can you raise your hand if this is clear and if you're not lost? And if you are, there's a question and answer time here after this so you can get very clear on this, because it's exactly how it is. As far as it can be articulated in this language, in this space and time, this is how it is. So you watch the outer rings. These are the 90th generations, 100th generations who are not as connected unless they made the journey to the center of themselves, right? And then they get infected first. And then it starts to reverberate because it's a frequency. It's a ripple. It starts to reverberate within, breaking down the kingdoms until it's heard on high. It starts to affect things on high. Now, the reason why this is not but torment and foolishness anyway, and this is a vain effort, is because once on high gets notified with what's happening, it's just going to push back, meaning that it's going to send out a pulse. And then that pulse is going to heal everything anyway. All right. So it's like a provoking. And this is anyway what sick beings and distorted beings do, is they basically, you remember this whole concept of Nazi Germany and what it came to the conclusion of. They felt like that they had been abandoned by the creators and earth and all this kind of stuff. And that if they tried to destroy it, maybe it would reveal itself to them and come and save them. So this is almost like something that already knows it's infected with the virus and knows that the only thing that can cure it is on high. It cannot get to it. So it's trying to provoke it to do something by getting us also sick so that it will. So a whole nother awareness will come into play here. All this stuff, man. I mean, I'll be looking at it because I'm a quantum thinker. I'll be like, man, who put this together? And then it'd be like, you did. I'd be like, oh, okay, you're right. Meaning all of us put this together. So when you're looking for something to blame or you're looking for whys, look no further than yourself. Okay. So anyway, but this is acting out, running its course. So this is why we'll know what to do when we're done with this transmission today. And for those that get the opportunity to hear it. So as you can now visualize, now the rings of the tree are starting to get rotten. The outer rings, they're getting succumbed by the virus from the horde, and it's moving toward the center. Now, how does this start to affect the beings in the center? Because we're all connected. We all have hearts. And no matter what, some people insist that they don't even use their heart and that they're non-empathic. You're playing around. You're letting the mind play with you. That cannot, you don't have control over that. It's like when you stop breathing, you die. You don't have control over that. So all of the hardwired stuff inside of the realm, you don't have control over. We're all connected through the heart. No one can disconnect the heart. So even their virus starts to affect all of our hearts and even the hearts in the center. Now, we know that the virus has been also centered around the money thing. Okay, the virus has been centered around the money thing because in the world, the horde uses this resource, and we cracked this code already. We'll call it the dollar because the petrodollar is the currency that is ruling the world right now, which is about to come out of power. This petrodollar is backed by the current or the blood of our mother, right? Because oil is the soul, or the spirit of earth. It is the blood of earth, right? Because even the water, that's another of the liquids that we have. It's way more, it's not let's say it's clear. Water is clear. So it's not synonymous with blood. There's a part in the blood that's clear. That's the water. But the part that makes it red, that's oil. So the petrodollar is backed by the oil or blood of the planet. And when we drain the blood like a vampire and create these forms of energy with it, that is what's happening in that ritual of necromancy. Because on the dollar, there is a dead president. There is geometry, which is talismanic geometry. And then there is the signature, which is the two-dimensional imprint of the being. And then that evokes the energy right there. And that's what ties everybody into that energy of necromancy. Okay. It's called a dollar, a doll. Okay. DOLL. It is a rectangle, which is phi. Okay. So the rectangle is phi. So phi is the actual, a rectangle or a door is a symbol of the body. Okay. So if in esoteria, when we draw a rectangle at perfect phi, we are also saying the body. We can draw that, what looks like a 6 in that perfect rectangle. And that gives us the masculine, which is the barrier or the rule of the straight line. And then it's also the feminine, which is actually the spiral that goes in it, as I think is a logarithmic spiral, right? So in the dollar, it's perfect phi. It's a doll. So if you could think of voodoo and you could think of how what we're going with the doll, this is way more refined. Talismans are geometrically perfect to cause whatever it is they're designed to do, okay? So with this kind of magic moving through the land, and we talked about how this is not just the American dollar. Every single form of currency is put together by the same group of occultists that understand how this magic works, okay? So this is how, when it's passing through our hands, especially with the magnetic strip, when we touch it, an essence of us gets on it, and it passed from hand to hand to hand. And this is the agreement, okay? Because we're passing a contract around, and then we're also agreeing for this part of the contract, it's $5, you got to give me this. And also the necromancers need their cut. So on the world stage, they're aware of this is happening spiritually. They're aware that this is happening spiritually. The brotherhoods and the sisterhoods that exist here know that after Aleister Crowley, the OTO, the Golden Dawn, the books of Enoch, and what they cracked into, that they put witchcraft on everybody through the money. And that was the Jews, the World Bank, the Kabbalah, not the stuff that was high and holy, the stuff that was profane, what's called the lesser keys. Okay? So after using this form of magic on the world and getting one person at a time to have to come into their system, now this virus, if you may, this mark has begun. A mark is a form of money, by the way. A mark is the money. Like a marker means money. Okay, so this mark or form of energy has now marked up many of the souls until that is spreading to the center. And I kid you not, it's as simple as this. Many of the First Nations are now dealing with the money monster now. Now it's finally gotten to the top of the mountain. They need to secure lands because people are coming from other countries with tons of money and buying land up at 2,000 hectares, $2,000 a hectare, $1,000 a hectare, $500 a hectare. And of course, these people have so much money, they'll be like, give me 4,000 hectares. Now they own the entire mountain, and now all the indigenous have to move out, right? Now they're all congealed into spaces generally below the mountain and off the sacred territories. And when they go to do their honorings, as we know about, they're not as grounded as they used to be. Okay, remember what I was telling you earlier. They're now in their ritual, if you may, and they're also thinking, I got to get a license soon. I'm going to pause for a minute here so you understand what's happening so this doesn't escape your consciousness so you'll know what to do. Man, my daughter probably should go to a real school. They're thinking about this. Some people think that the indigenous are like monkeys or something, that they don't even think. This is a misconception. They're living now their generation after generation. And the first people, this just means they haven't made it. Like I made it with others. Like I'm black, white, Chinese, Japanese, and Indian. Okay. So that means there's a lot coming through here. They're them. So the bloodline is pure in their state. Now, I'm not talking about who's better than the other. All of us have a position here. But their position, they're coming off of their position because they're concerned about things going on. They're concerned about a form of energy that was perpetuated on the furthest ring first. Even some of these forefathers that you may, even the black presidents that was actually in the U.S. that you don't know about, the Moorish kingdoms that were there, they didn't operate on this kind of currency system for this very reason. Even the John Birch Society was already aware in the 1910s that, hey, once these people try to take us off of some backing from this currency and these greenbacks, this is magic. This is talisman. Everybody needs to know what to do. But now, slowly but surely, one ring at a time. Because what do? They get to the new generation. The new generation is the outer ring. Baby boomers, those are outer rings. So this is why they took the children and they realized it was so important to get to the children, because they could not get to people in the center ring and the First Nations with ideas of things like talismans being used as a form of currency and working with the dead and all of that. That's like, you're not even going to get a conversation in with that. But to the last nations, well, they've been raised on horror films. They've been eating all of this crazy food that's on the shelf that's just available in a box. They don't have to plant it. The beauty of when you become sustainable is it's not a chore. First, you realize that it actually is easier than they made you believe. And the second thing, when you're growing something and you eat it, you feel like you're taking care of yourself. That I don't gotta wait until I get another check to go and feed myself some more boxed food. I got a whole thing growing on out here and I'm eating from this. You feel more and more secure when you turn on your own power grid, more and more secure. And this brings a security and fortification around you. But again, let me desist from this. And it just explained to you again. So now with the First Nations having in their mind a little bit of the virus, when they go to connect and tap in, mother's not feeling them as much. This makes her sad. Do you understand what's happening? They are a little distracted, even if it's just a little bit. I won't say that all of them are completely lost. Some are still holding space. There's even temples with ones that you think are dead, and they're there holding space. We're talking about the Papuru, if I'm saying it right. That's the device that's in the hand of the Mamos, and how they're recording. They're carrying a book of their life, just like they told you in the Luna. It's all there. I'm not saying something that I just learned on my own and I just figured out. This is what they say, that the mamos as males have to basically keep a memory of everything that they see by just remaining in concentration with their thought and then continuously placing that thought around that gourd. And now that rod that they have, the stick, and then the gourd, is symbolic, obviously, of the generative components. And inside is the womb. And this is the process that they've learned to keep themselves on point with, for the male, the situation that needs to occur with our memories. And because a woman has this already installed. A womb is already installed. The male needs to actually keep, that's why we started this writing, have to keep like a record of what's happening and going on so that we can maintain an awareness of who we are when we cross on. But we'll talk about that later, okay? Because right now, what this is about is you being aware that since the First Nations were responsible for appeasing the mother and making her happy, and despite what was going on, her still making things happen and work right. She could speak into the hearts of men. She has kings. She has different beings that have pledged allegiance to her, but many of those beings have been compromised. Okay? You got to realize that many of the beings that serve the mother are now serving mammon, the money. They've been compromised. The virus got to them too. We talked about this years ago. However, let's keep visualizing this. So then what happens is that now they stop kind of like connecting the way they do. The mother kind of gets a little bit sad. and kind of balls up, basically. Not healing anymore, confused, not knowing really what to do about the situation. These are my kids. I'm definitely not going to kill them. And in that state, which is also the state from when we can't make decisions, you know how when you get in your mind, you don't know what to do? You're just kind of sitting there, should I stay? Should I go? Should I be with him? Should I leave? That state, some people think that this stuff is exclusive to us. This is, every being has these states. So this is the state that Earth's in. The Earth has to make a decision, or someone has to do something to assist Earth in making the proper decision. And you would think, well, this is Earth. How could I ever help? We're all tied into the same thing. You either become First Nation and start dialing into her and be able to clear your mind, which is true meditation, and speak a language beyond English and connect and appease her more so that we prevent massive outbreaks, hurricanes, earthquakes, all those kind of things. Or we at least, instead of saying we're going to prevent it, we make it subside so that it's gentle as we go through this process of gestation ourselves. Or we also use our knowledge and our intelligence to create things that we know that will be harmonic with fixing these situations. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So let me just finish. You see the state of Earth in as she's going to being grandmother. Now remember, that's what I'm saying. You know, you got to be on point here, and you got to make sure you stay awake, and you got to make sure you do what you're being told to do by your higher self and complete 360 self. Because what happens when you watch a mother and a child, because I told you all occult knowledge, it can be summarized within the family network. It's not as crazy as some of these books they be writing. They was ad-libbing. The real network of power is within the family and the structure of a tribe. So you will watch the mother, right? The relationship with the mother and the grandmother and the child. So what will happen is the child is out now. The mother loves this child. She's letting the child do anything. She doesn't want the child to be punished at all because she doesn't want the scenario to happen for the child of what she experienced with her grandmother. So let me put this in layman's terms for you. If you're a part of that generation, because maybe some are young here, so they ain't even part of the generation, they ain't got a whooping before. Like I got, whoopings when we did stuff wrong, right? So when I thought about how whoopings impacted me, and then when I had a child, I was like, well, maybe we can try something different that we don't have to give her whoopings. Maybe that'll work. Maybe we have a new way, like the reward system. Okay. Now, the grandparents will tell you that that is foolishness. If this child does something crazy, you spank this child so that they can stop doing that. Right. So if you ever watch, and if you haven't ever seen it, you can imagine it. The grandmother will come in when a child is doing something and say, girl, give me this child. And they'll run down there. And the mom is like, well, why you need to learn how to raise this child. So see, it's the grandmother's role to step in when the mother's in like, oh, my child. And to show her exactly what to do with the child. And then this child grows up if the grandmother is there. Okay. But of course, we're living in a cycle where the grandmother has been removed. That is amen. It has been hidden, right? So the mother is still in this phase like, what do I do? And the grandmother phase she's about to be initiated into, this is what you do. So while we're here also, like I'm like the good kid traumatized by the whole thing, we just need to get on higher ground and keep assisting those that are on higher ground with remaining connected. And that's how we do our part, okay? So how do we do that? So now that we can see that what the actual situation is with the mother and also with the First Nations who are responsible for appeasing the mother and letting her feel that everything is fine so she can keep producing abundance. Now she's not getting connected with that with as much. This is the direct transmission coming from the indigenous nations. It was not only from the Mamos. Our brother Diego Iorio is also here. And he has a window in or a lens in to many different tribes. And he showed me their message and what they're saying. And it runs congruent that all the indigenous tribes are saying right now that this is the time for little brother and everybody else's brother and sister to kick in. And they're doing everything that they can. They're coming together, tribes that don't normally even connect, because everything is so sacred to them. Even stepping on certain lands, they don't even believe that you have the right to put your feet on certain lands, especially around waterfalls and all that. So they're holding a higher level of aesthetic, which again allows them to be more actual and more realistic every time they connect. But now they're getting on planes, they're getting passports, they're doing things that would naturally begin to disconnect them. They're around other people who are actually giving them the virus through their suggestions. Hey, use this cell phone. Here, text this. You could text your mother. Oh, really? Text? You can imagine what this is like. You've been on a mountain forever, basically, because your DNA has not been down off that mountain. Now you come out to the 900th ring to look at New York City, and imagine you're there with your poo-poo and be like, whoa, even the craziest shaman and his prophecy didn't match this. That's why I said, imagine the prophecies then when they were looking out into the outer rings. People were riding around in great birds screeching with fumes and exhaustion and fire coming from their rears. People were staring into crystal balls and becoming disillusioned by monsters that were coming forth from those crystals. This is the only way you could explain it back then. And I'm sure when everyone was in that build, in that yurt or teepee or whatever it was, going through that sweat as the shaman was speaking these words and the masters were speaking these words, they were like, yo, he's tripping. She's tripping. Why do they gotta be so negative? I'm sure why they gotta be so negative. I don't believe that's going to be the future. And also remember, we're living in this. So we don't have that same perception until we get that heightened stage of consciousness to be able to see it from that bird's eye view. We're living in it. This is normal. So think about the different viewpoints because you have both of them. For you, I was raised in that. It's not that to me. From somebody else that's coming from another space, they look at it and this is the prophecies have happened. So while you may have prophecies that you think may or may not happen, may or may not occur, they already have prophecies that they are 100% seeing occur. Okay, so it's always beneficial for you to be able to put your consciousness into another one of our brothers and sisters and look at it from their point of view, so that way you can answer certain questions for yourself. The prophecies happen. Are they going to happen? The prophecies already happened. So what are we going to do about it? What are the actions? Okay. So also, before I start getting into the solutions, because I'm not even stating the problem, I'm just stating the situation that's happening. If I'm aware of what's happening, I can do something about it because the solutions exist before the problem. The solutions always exist before the problem. Right? But if you don't know how to identify what the issue is, then you're not going to be able to solve it. So we're just identifying things here. So now we know the mother situation. We know the diagram of the planetary system. We know what Mount Meru really is now. We know where we're at on the outer rings or making our way towards the center. We even know what the center really consists of. We realize that this is also really a tree. We understand that it quantifies its growth and its abundance as long as the center remains sound. We know that the First Nations are responsible for making sure the center remains sound. We know that the Horde launched a virus called necromancy money that started to corrupt things from the outer ends. We know that they were not able to convince anyone in the First Nations and the centers to do this, but what they did do was take the children who were going to become the outer rings and then convince them of the stuff, show them the horror movies, show them the money, show them the consumerism, and show them all that, and then that would eventually reverberate and get to the top of the mountain, because now those that are on the top of the mountain feel that it's necessary for them to come down. They're coming down and also getting infected by the virus, seeing exactly what is happening and realizing that they need to make a move. They don't feel grounded in their connection and in their prayers because they feel like that if they were grounded, then they would be thinking about what's really going on around them. And when they think about what's really going on around them, they see people buying up their land and taking their land. And they're starting to think, hey, maybe we need to get some of this money thing so that way we can start buying land. And then that direct thought, which is a mark or an inception into how the current really works, a bloodletting, if you may, that actually would then be draining the energy and actually disconnecting the communication. And this then occurs with mother not getting what she needs and feeling somewhat abandoned by her own children. And then grandmother like, okay, so it's playing out again. So let's do this as we do it, as we say, in death, pestilence, greed, ignorance, distortions, confusions. I incarnate. It's the most powerful part of the ancient text. It means that you only wake up when this kind of stuff happens. And you see how that holds true? Stuff's normal. You feel like you got all day. Stuff starts happening around you. You wake up. So guardians wake up. Avatars wake up. And this is what you wanted because you didn't want to stay asleep forever. And on top of that, you needed a cause, a reason to actually wake up, to draw upon this power that you have to accomplish your mission, which is the fulfillment. It keeps you awake. It lights your flame. It's the reason why you don't go to sleep. Once this lights up one time, because you're a new being, right? Once you light up one time, it's an eternal fire. You connect and turn on Kundalini, it's an eternal fire. So it never needs to be turned on again, but you do need to get it started. And that's just like a seed. Once it sprouts out, now it's a bush, now it's a plant, now it's a bush, now tree, right? And so here we are. I'm going to explain to you a few more of these mysteries. It's just to understand different forms of communication with the planet because and with the cosmos and with all there is, because some may say, well, how do I communicate if I'm not using English? Okay. Now, the first form of communication, which requires nothing external, I want to place an emphasis on that. Because as you go along, you may get some trinkets, some feathers, some stones, some wood, some bracelets, some all sorts of stuff as you go. And that just makes up your regalia. It's serving to actually keep you in remembrance of things at times. But the greatest level of power that you have, you don't need anything beyond the consciousness that will always be with you. Okay? So this form of communication is set through intentions. So what I witnessed from the mammals is that they would take a piece of pure cotton and they would put it in both of their palms to stay balanced. And they would begin to, in their honoring process, set these intentions into this cotton. These intentions could range from what's called a pagamentos. This is more of like a payment for you and the land, and between you and the land, as like a form of forgiveness, if you may, for the things that you have been doing offline and against. Pagamentos, okay, payments. All the way to another form of honoring where you're being thankful for all of the things that you've ever eaten, all the things that you've ever experienced here on this space. And as you're contemplating those intentions, I also saw that they instructed to put that also by where your reproductive areas were, that you would put your fist down like this and you would concentrate into the center of yourself, like send the concentration into the center of yourself and into the center of your hands, just to place those intentions where your regenerative energy comes forth at. And then when you were done and you felt that you had clarified through your consciousness what your intentions were, you would then plant these cotton seeds or these pieces of cotton. It didn't have to be necessarily seeds, even though they did also have seeds of cotton, right? So they would plant it. Now, there's much more details to this, and I trust that we'll have the mamos with us to be able to give us this knowledge and information directly. I'm giving you this now so that way you can begin to get started on what you know you would be doing if you got this calling and this alignment to do this with the earth and to connect yourself with the earth. And remember, nobody does it like you. I had to explain this the other day. Someone said, how do I do this? And it was really something rather simple, but they needed like an instruction on how to do it. And it like the consciousness now is always waiting for like a tutorial, a Google Doc or something. And you got to remember, nobody does it like you. Just go and do it. And your consciousness will teach you how to do it. Because if you have like this instruction, like now you didn't print it out something on your printer, and you now are reading the instructions as you do it, this ain't gonna work. You're way more disconnected even than if you was just thinking about money at that point. Get the instructions, put it into common sense, and then go and do it. And don't start thinking about, am I doing it wrong? Don't let the monkey mind tear you down like that and start breaking up your intentions, okay? So that is one way. The next way that I also see that was very apparent, and I'm not sure how many caught this, but the hayu, which is what we know as the coca leaf, in this culture plays a very intrinsic role. I recommend that everyone here at least read the Wikipedia entry about coca leaves. And they don't use this term. Most indigenous tribes only in Bolivia actually use this term, right? So all around the world, different tribes have different plants, obviously, and many of them do use the coca leaf, right? So as I'm observing this, because you know that cocaine is produced from the coca leaf. Where am I at as time is concerned? Lots of jewels being dropped here. Okay, so cocaine is produced from the coca leaf, right? But remember how we kept seeing this thing go on over the years as we started investigating how did many of the indigenous nations get turned aside by many of these secret societies who knew their weaknesses. And it was predominantly through certain plants that were once ceremonial plants, and then they were potentized or given in an overabundance, and then this created a certain level of addiction. So let me give an example here. Alcohol is used in many indigenous ceremonies, especially in Africa. That spirit can be used, and it's used in the form of a way of contacting higher states of consciousness, okay? Now, generally, alcohol is only allowed to be drunken by someone that is basically in the higher rank in the tribe, meaning that they're the ones responsible for communicating with the spirit. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone can't do this. It just means that you need to be trained on what you're doing. Nothing's done haphazardly. You don't go sit at a bar with a whole shelf full of spirits and drink until you're in oblivion in the indigenous or ancient First Nation tribes. That's not how any of this stuff was used. It was used in a sacred way. But those who knew how to use it had for sure a fermentation and a concentrated spirit of something. And in the ceremony, when using that spirit, it would bring it into that space because it is ether, right? So this is how it works. Also, I will say, if you guys would smile, if you ladies and gentlemen and women and uncles and men and all you beautifuls, if you would just smile, because when I look over here, that means, because my monitor's here, so I'm looking at you to see how this is coming across. So some of y'all like, it doesn't help me. It doesn't help. Smile. You know, it's everything is great. You only spend a certain fraction of your time here on the planetary system anyway, and you're doing this. You're living it up. This is the highest level of the dream in itself. And so just be aware of that and stay in your space. And I just wanted to, just check the space real quick and make sure we all moving, living, and breathing over here. So I'm going to take a moment for somebody to tell me exactly where I was at just now.
Cocoa leaves.
Okay, thank you, sister.
And it's just riveting, brother. That's what it is.
So these coca leaves,
And the alcohol.
And the alcohol. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So in each tribe, there are different elements that actually are used as spiritual tools, if you may, as a form of communication and actually contain the essence of the energies themselves. We also learned this in alchemy. Okay. So we see that when weaknesses were being introduced, it was generally through abundance. So like with many of the second nations and third nations, they got addicted to alcohol, right? They got addicted to the opiums in the Orient because these plants were then taken and either, again, given in abundance. They even had certain alcohols and they were just given these forms, big cases of this alcohol that they were brewing, and it became the form of currency to these native tribes. So they didn't give them money because money didn't mean anything to the native tribes. So when they were coming in, the traders, literally, when they were coming in, they would give them these cases and cases and cases of alcohol. And now this would be something that would basically, there would only be like one bottle of. And now there's hundreds of bottles of it. So now you can imagine some of the people were slipping because they were like, well, it used to only be enough for just the high priest and the high priestess. Now there's enough for all of us. And then they would be drunk, right? Same thing with opium. Opium is a very powerful plant. It was used as a tea by many of the ancient Orientals, right? They take this plant, synthesize it. It becomes so powerful, now it throws them into over the realm. See, because when you're sensitive, you can take a little bit of this and you feel the full essence of it. But as you get more and more degenerated, you need potent versions of it to actually feel its effects. And generally, you basically reach a drunken stage too fast. So not only do you not connect, you also basically go into like a stupor. You get overwhelmed. Same thing with cocaine. Originally, many of these tribes used the coca leaf for multiple reasons. The coca leaf is like, when you read the profile, you don't even really need to eat. You may eat 1 meal a day. You don't actually feel hungry. You can stay in high altitudes. It's a stimulant, not a depressant. It's nothing like cocaine. Once you strip and synthesize and all that, and you make procaine, novocaine, and all that kind of stuff, that is nothing like what the coca leaf is. On top of the coca leaf, it is not addictive. No one has shown that if they have it 1 or 2 times or 10 times, if they all of a sudden don't have it, that there's some kind of withdrawal or effect from them not getting it. So what do the mamos say? The mamos say this plant is so instrumental to them remaining connected to the mother because these trees are also planted in their land. So then I got to thinking, with the quantum processor, I had a eureka moment. I realized that even why I had went vegetarian for 20 years was it's a simple principle here. Let's imagine this is just an entire network of like an antenna system. And when you have certain things running through your circuitry, which is your bloodline, your veins, that taps you into other things like the community. You get basically a line in, you get the telephone number of that particular system. So if you wanted the telephone number to your indigenous land, you need to eat the sacred pure flower or leaf of that land from your ancestors. And then what happens then is it gets in your bloodstream. Okay. And since your bloodstream is the antenna system, and I mean, this is common sense, but common sense ain't common. Now that this stuff is in your blood, now you're actually really connected because your auric field and all the little strings that you can't see now have this frequency flowing through them that taps you into the other frequencies that are around you. So this makes sense why we had a sacred plant inside of our tribe that kept us connected into the spaces that we're in. But generally, these trees grew native in our lands. Marijuana was obviously one of them. Coca leaf was one of them. Opium, blue lotus, all of these plants, this is how they were used. But they were always used in their pure form. They didn't have to take it through a laboratory synthesis, strip it down, make it 100x. Like some of these elements, even the DMT, they're like 50, 60, 70 times stronger than what the root bark actually is. So a little acacia tea from the lands that you're from, if you find out that you're from the desert, little acacia tea is now tapping you into your sacred lands. Why is this important? That is the other form of communication. We talked about one through intentions. Now we're talking about another one through the sacred plant. So again, we're just bringing in some gems here of what this stuff really does. Also from what was observed and also spoken by the mamos. And also from the body of awareness that I've had over the years or a lifetime now of observing and engaging in the spiritual plane and spiritual world, spiritual existence. So now, let me just take a moment here, and gather myself because, these transmissions and what's happening, it's so much power and, it meets the challenge. It meets the challenge. Like the world is obviously in a situation right now. The power of this consciousness is ready for that. It's like it meets the challenge. It's like, no problem. We got this. This is what you were trained for. Now you will take it a little bit more serious. Great. Now you will go get what you really need. Great. So let's keep going with this. So also, what the mamos were capable of doing once more for me is giving me another way to look at the first thought and how the first thought even comes into play. What I'm talking about is that on a higher level, first of all, like when you do something, it is. When you do something, it is. You think something, it is, right? So on the higher levels, this is how things are in play. But here, there's a lag to it. And we talked about this. We were kind of grateful that there was a lag, because sometimes what we think is not exactly what we want to happen. But we can also say that in the realm of real manifestation, that would actually present a problem, because we wouldn't be able to manifest the things that we need to manifest in the sequence and in the order rapid enough for it to gestate and be good. Like we talked about, and it was good. This means that if you can get the manifestation sequences in order and you line them up properly, it manifests and it does not come back void. It comes to life. That's how things are manifested. But if you have thoughts in between and doubts, this throws off the chain in sequences and then it dies. It aborts. It never becomes a part of this world. Right? So the Kualama was explaining that, which is the bridge for the Mamos. He was explaining that, well, see, even when I explain the purportal to you, it's not like you're ever really going to understand what this is. Now, peep this out. I'm going to try to explain this in English. It's not that you're ever really going to understand what I'm explaining to you, because we just do it. This is something that has always been with us. We now know the explanation of it, but when we were doing it, it didn't have an explanation, if you get where I'm coming from. So as far as this being articulated in English of what it does, that's not how we came into this. We know what it does, and then we had to figure out in English and other languages how to explain that to other people. So then, remember then, when we're explaining it to you, it hasn't come yet into the real communicative form that you would need to understand what this really does. And that may be a little bit confusing to you until you actually realize the difference between the first and the first thought versus it is. Okay? Because in our minds, we have a first thought so often we think that it's natural. We think that it's natural to tell ourselves something in our language as a thought. Like I'm about to shut this off. Let me cut this off. That's what I mean is a first thought. Because there is something that happened before I started saying I'm going to cut this off. And that happens so fast, I don't even catch it with my mind. And if you can be there and you can use that, you can manifest anything. What you say it is what it is. Because everything else is a second thought. Okay? Or excuse me, everything else is even a first thought. There's something before first thought. We'll call it a zero thought. We always have to, bring this into complete perspective. A lot of this stuff may seem new at first, but listen to what I'm saying. There is a zero thought. Okay? And this one comes first. So just like I may say right now, I need to turn over here. If I say that into my mind, notice I didn't say that into my mind. Like if I look over here and I look at the screen, I didn't say in my mind, I need to look at the screen. That's the zero thought of me just coming over here. I naturally know that I need to look at the screen. But see, our progress through life is constantly interrupted with a verbal one that says, I need to go to the car. That's the first thought. So the reason why I'm giving it as an example is that on a metaphysical level, there are many first thoughts that we're having right now, and it's interrupting the power of our true manifestation. And the easiest way to understand this is really the story of the mother and how all of this was actually created from the mamos. And many traditions bear witness to this. This is taken directly from the Luna documentary. It explains, in the beginning, the mother sat in darkness. Okay? Pure thought without form. Okay? Put yourself into that space. The mother is there. And as you may subscribe thinking to men, that is another error. Just like you describe math and logic to being masculine, that is another error. Okay? That's not how it is. Thought is coming from the mother. She is the master of the thought. Okay? So she's sitting in complete darkness like a womb, and there is no form. When there's no form, that is pure thought. Okay? So zero thought is pure form. Okay? This is the highest level you can reach. That's what meditation is. She conceived the word in the darkness like an idea. Then it took form. Okay? So the first thought is a word. Now, this is crazy because this is completely subscribed to the masculine God of the Bible. In the beginning was the word, and the word did not come back void. In the beginning was the word, and the word was God. The word was with God, and the word was God. Okay, but God is a man. So this is stolen stuff they're talking about. And it's stolen from these original texts that she conceived the word in darkness like an idea. So to make it more, to explain it even more, it's not just like a word like how we understand words. It was a whole idea. It was an idea of everything. That's why we said it all unfolded like a lotus, like a dream coming into life. The original points and seeds of all life being created was this word that was comprehended by the mother that took form from pure space, which is nothing. Okay? And then she spun a thread and then weaved us into the story. Okay? So as like what I said, like a spider, an umbilical or a tether, like all of our umbilical cords create a certain geometry. That geometry is what we're living in. That is all the thoughts, the essence, the energies, the connection, the foods, all of that was all thought up at one time. And we are in it, and we were weaved into it like a blanket. And that's why the indigenous say that this is why they knit. It's a blanket. And we're all weaved into this blanket. I'll finish here of my notes. The Koji's job is to take care of the world by connecting with the grandmother, in this case, the mother, and continuously excuse my notes have popped off the screen real quick. In many ways, actually, they take care of the mother. We talked about the swamas. We talked about many ways that the Kogi and the Mamos take care of the mother. I just really wanted you to understand the first property here so I don't get off track about how this comes into conception and how you are still in a micro version of that same component. If your mind is clear and you're in the zero thought, that's actions. They happen and they manifest. If you go first thought, that is a word or an idea. Then there's second thought, third thought, fourth thought, fifth thought. And those are like the rings we were discussing earlier. The further the thoughts get out, the more contaminated they are because they're not, they're diluted from the original thought. Okay? So that was master knowledge that was brought to me again. And I was able to see such a deeper level of the meaning in itself of nobody does it like you. You can't really go and ask someone how to do something because now you're already on first and second thought. Go out and try to do your best at tapping into zero thought and carry out your actions because they have the most strength. They have the most level of manifestation. Also, the reason why I mentioned this is it's easy to do this when there's no language. Okay, I want you to understand this. The indigenous and the ancients, they didn't have what we call language, words. They definitely didn't write down anything. And because of that, they always were able to maintain zero thought space. Does that make sense? So just remember, while you may be struggling to do it, like I struggle to do it, it's easy for someone when they don't have any language already to do it. So if you're trying to wonder, well, how do they do it? You know how we get into like, how do they do it? It's just like when we were talking about the papoodle with the mamo. If I tell you how to do it, it still doesn't mean that you really know because I had to create these words and forget it. And so you can see how much of a struggle it would be to try to explain to somebody something that they would actually not need an explanation to actually know how to really do. What a conundrum, right? So just in the realization of this, because we can like walk our way out of this confusion. Let's walk ourselves out of the confusion. Let's detangle ourselves. Like keep your tether, but untangle all this stuff you got tangled up into. And it's like it's kinking. It's not just the tangle, because the tangle is the dance. That's the duel. That's the duet. It's kinked. Get unkinked to open up these energetic forces and these energetic supplies. So let's just finalize this here. So remember, life without language means we go right into action. Write it down. Life without language means we go right into action. You can always put yourself in another brother's and another sister's mindset. You can always put yourself into a First Nation or a Second Nation, if you may, consciousness, because we're all connected. And in that state, realize that the reason why you would have power there is because there's no language. This is why the Mamo said that we're kind of backwards in our belief. We believe that the further we go, the more we learn. Their awareness of that is exactly opposite. The further we go, the dumber we become, the more disconnected we become. And in the beginning or in the center, that is when things were the closest or the strongest or the purest. So this allows us to know when I'm making this journey up to this mountain, I'm not going up there in vain. There is something up there. This is common sense. When I go to the center of myself, I'm not going to the center of myself in vain. You've been on so many blue missions. I know. External missions where you get on the mission and then you finally get to whatever the destination is and it's empty. Nothing was there. I went through all that teaching. I just graduated. I just got my diploma. I just got charged $500,000 for this education and it's worth nothing. I just went to this church. I gave my tithes and offerings. I love this preacher. I love this. And now I figured out that Jesus is a hoax. Okay, so we have so many external scenarios where we're constantly getting disappointed and let down. So this has happened so many times. Now we're second guessing, second thinking ourselves about going to the center of self and what it is that what we would even find there. And if it's a bloop mission, if it's something that it'll be another empty scenario, something that we spend a lot of time on and then it under delivers for us and we've wasted more time. This is not that story. Always make sure you tell yourself when they come with all of the whole, and this is going to happen and this is that happen. If that does not resonate, especially with this true message, just be like, man, but that's not my story though. I appreciate you enlightening me on that, but that's not my story. And that's how you make things nullify and void. Do not accept or agree to anything that is not a part of your story that you feel resonant with if it does not align with these higher truths. Because these higher truths are really as above, so below. Or as the Mamo say, what goes on below the mountain eventually affects the top of the mountain. And what goes on at the top of the mountain affects what's at the bottom of the mountain. That's there as above, so below. So now we're dealing with some situations on the bottom of the mountain. And this is why it's important for those to know how to go up and down the mountain. It is not for everyone. There are those who hold space and stay on the top of the mountain. The Mamos really do have a ring-like structure where you may get through the first ring of the mountain, which is at the lowest altitude of the mountain. But to get to the second ring alone, you need a reason. And then to pass up all the way to the high Mamos who are not in touch with any of the beings from the lower levels except through telepathy, right? And to even connect with a Chaga, which is the female of the Mamos, something like the grandmothers, those are the Chagas, the wives, the Chagas, to even connect with them. And there are other terms. Again, I'm not professing to know everything about the Mamos. I'm just here doing my part and spreading a message that's coming from inside of all of us about a certain level of awareness and truth that we have to carry with us at all times. Because it's inside of you, this is very easy. It's not a bag that you have to keep picking up every day. But you're going to have to do this through infinity. This is just not Earth going on here. What is Earth? This is you, your experience, what's happening with you. And this is how you make sure at every point that you have secured yourself properly through infinity. So let's keep going, because we're at the end of the knowledge here. And now I'm going to answer some questions that are obvious that I'm going to get. And then we'll see how much more time there is for any other questions. I just believe that this is so all-encompassing what I have here. There's no reason to doing a Q&A because it would just stretch out time. Also, we can do a Q&A next week because I do have to have something to even bring forth then, and we can marinate on this rather than actually keep pouring more and more into it. This is more than enough to actually get us into another stage of our consciousness and to make the upgrades happen. However, I do want to address the elephant in the room, so I will. So we now know about accepting the first thought. Okay, now we may not be able to get control of this thing right away, but now being aware of how first thought comes in and is weaker than zero thought, we can now start to tap into zero thought and know how that even exists. Removing ourselves from language, even realizing that it's not in English. I do love to see, these elaborate honorings. We sit in front of the tree and Great Mother Earth. I appreciate so much that you've been giving us and that you've been doing for us. And then you'll watch people, right? And they just learn how to put words together really well, right? And this comes off as an outward show of spirituality. And others are like, even when they're done, they're like, man, you said that really well, brother. But did you feel it? Because the only reason why the words had a level of giving us some power or restoring us back to power was because they could be chanted. And a chant is very similar to when you see, let's say, like a Baptist minister start getting high on the words. And I said, if right now we don't go to the highest level, then there is no levels. And I said that if we don't come together today and really start bringing ourselves into the highest level of who we are. And I said that and I'm telling you, if you start doing that, even now I get this. Now, if I do that for 30 minutes, some weird stuff is going to start happening, especially based on my alignment. But if I'm doing this, and I said that if we start coming together, and I said, and there is nothing in there, it cannot produce anything. So you need to understand what words are actually used for. They need you to complete them. And they're only used to get a motor started. And then pretty soon it's kind of like, that's how rap works. It's like eventually you get into this trance and you keep going and you no longer think about what you're saying. You remove yourself from first thought all of a sudden. And then you get into Zen. Now you're at zero thought. And even though you're still saying something, you're not necessarily thinking about what you're saying. This called the tongue to be caught up. That's what they call it. Tongue gets caught up. Right? Don't let them steal anything. All this belongs to us. We were the original Ophites. We're the Nagas even. When the tongue gets caught up, then you start speaking another language. Okay? Smile a little bit for me. Just one more time. Another language that is not written. That is from your ancestors. That is foreign to Jia, which is basically the base beings roaming through the land that they cannot understand at all. So they cannot speak into or know your future and what you prophesy. That is what those powers are used for. But remember, they got to be welled up. You can't be just sitting there in monotone thinking all of a sudden you're going to be able to draw down a star. It's not possible. But know what this does because you may need it. You may be in there one day like, look, I think I need to do what Sevan was saying because this is... And trust that will happen for you. This is not something where you're like, I hope situations don't have to happen. Oh my God, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Can you not see that these things are here to strengthen you? You are guided already, but you have to awaken to your full potential. You'll just get bored. You may even do something silly like go into depression and then even, go at the wrist a little bit. Who knows what you may do if you're not able to understand how much power you really have and how to build up energy, okay? So, now you know. Now you're up to date. Now you're refined. Now you're purified. Now you're cleansed. Now you're in tune. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. I won't even speak its name, the one we don't speak of. So, what can we do about the situation? This is the question. It's very open-ended because it will answer many of the questions that are going to be delivered through this. Okay, through this, if I say, hey, let's ask some questions. What should we do about this situation? We're talking about on the ground, the real world situation. Now, first thing we talked about, first and foremost, is we talk about relaxed and alert. Okay, so that's Mamos 1. If you didn't get that already, go and check that out. That is your first commandment, if you may. Get the relaxed, alert awareness and how that works within you. 2, if you are concerned, okay, and you're still in that space, because remember, to the mages, there's no enemy. But if you're not an adept, do not proclaim you're an adept. If you're a neophyte, you're a neophyte. Great. If you're initiate, you're initiate. Great. But don't be like that person who doesn't know the beginning of AA, which is to accept where they really are. Have a sober estimate of who you are and what you can do. So that way you can increase your awareness and your ability to discern. Nobody cares if you're neophyte or adept or initiate or whatever. If your eyes close, all of ours probably stay open. So this is just about you. So in this case, make a sober estimate of yourself. And if you feel like that your immunity levels are a little low, okay, now I want to say mental, physical, and spiritual immunity, okay? Now, spiritual immunity, when spiritual immunity is low, this means when chatter is going on about different things that are happening, you get thrown off your square. You get thrown off your solid foundation. Now, remember, when they say a square, it's because can you build a foundation on a circle? Has anybody tried to build on a circle before? Nature does not want anything built on her. That's why she is a spiral. She is a circle. So when something is built like a foundation, it's built on a square. A square is laid flat like this. Okay? You can't build on this. You build on this. Okay? So if you're on your foundation, right? On your fortified foundation, this is where your spiritual immunity, physical immunity, and mental immunity comes into consideration. Okay? Because in the circle, you're always protected. That's what the circle is to protect you through infinity. You're always connected. So if we're on the ground, we're on the square, we're on the foundation, and you're asking questions in English to your mind about the external body, well, we got something for that too. That's how I have to usher that in, because some are just polarized. They just like, I'm never coming back. My hand is in the sand. Nothing that I guess everything is invisible because my eyes are closed. Nothing really exists. You know, that's only one form of this. We're talking about also getting in balance here. So that other side, if your spiritual immunity is starting to be affected because you're hearing things going on around you, there's ways to strengthen your spiritual immunity. This is really what we're doing right now in ambassador training. This is really about strengthening the spiritual immunity. We have the mental immunity. This is that when people keep chattering about stuff that they don't know about and now they're inventing. Remember, we're storytelling people. So what people are going to invent in these next few months about what's really happening will be their wildest imagination. And because they had TV has given them the foundations to be almost unlimited with what kind of nightmares or dreams they can cook up. So just remember that. That's the mental immunity. But if you wanted to practice in certain ways, you can go at any of these to fix all of them. Okay? Because metaphysically, you can do things metaphysically that affect your physical body. You can do things mentally that affect you spiritually. So these systems are intertwined. There's not bodies unless we're dissecting them and trying to refer to all of them. It is all one body. When you feel physically sick, spiritually, you don't necessarily feel like going to raise the rooftops either. Mentally, you don't feel like writing papers and bringing all this mental awareness to everything. So what one benefits affects the others. What one is When one is in disarray, it affects the others. Okay. So this means that you can grab either one of those, especially the one that you have the most grip in, to actually strengthen the other. So if it's just about the physical immunity, which I want to address, your first lines of defense are 1, chaga, that mushroom, and its subset. I'm not going to get all technical here with you, but what chaga has is it has many things that put what you would see as like shells around your cells, shells and forms of immunity that give you several layers of protection. Okay? From, as I said, mental, spiritual, and physical blows at your immunity. Okay? You have chaga. The next thing, colloidal, silver, and nebulizer. Our brother Diego had brought that to my attention again last night. And I'm like, yes, this is perfect because I'm going to go in about this tomorrow. And that one has slipped my mind a little bit. But colloidal, silver, and the nebulizer. Remember, the nebulizer is the thing that it just sprays mist. You put the colloidal silver in there and you breathe that in all of this. Remember, the military is using this. This is not something that is like another, this is not snake oil. In all of this, the ventricle systems and all of this, anything, it's out. And it's not so harmful for your body. Because some folks, they're binging on MMS right now, and that's not going to strengthen your immune system, actually. That's going to kill your good bacteria. Also, to fortify the immune system, enzymes, probiotics. I mean, do not delay in this. I'm not talking about things that we just provide on the store. We have colloidal silver. We don't have nebulizers. Chaga, I'm talking to my Connect over there where the chaga is pure and clean, but there's no chaga yet. But you can go find chaga. Chaga's out there. This is about real facts of boosting your immunity mentally, spiritually, physically, by getting alignment with the nobles and the elements that's what they do. It's just what they do. And the more you connect with Mother, it quantifies the experience. And you'll find yourself into a higher stage as the portals keep opening because there's less fog, less clouds, less confusion on the astral planes as we go forward. Folks are made to sit down. What do you think? You should know. We talked about what stadiums are and how everybody's in there cheering for this duality and how the energy is being used because the place is generally configured on a portal and that how they're directing. Now that's over with. It's like spiritual exhaust clogging up the astral plane with all these vain and impure thoughts. Now it ain't there. So this is the time for you to get your transmission through. You know how you feel like that there's also like this window of opportunity open? This is what this is about. So right now, you will be heard by your ancestors more clearly than any other time with all of this combined. It's not even just one thing. I've talked about several things in this build. So now you have your chaga. All this is inexpensive too. You have your colloidal silver. You can even get a silver lung machine and actually make your own colloidal. Make it for others that are in your neighborhood. Like the thing about colloidal silver, when you get a silver lung machine, is you can make gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons because it's all the anode. It's an anode. So all you got to do is clean the anode and go in for another batch. And then it turns that light golden, or you don't even have to have the little activator. You can just use the white version. But if you can make colloidal silver, and you can nebulize and you can keep all of your ventricles and all this system clean. And this is subconsciously and consciously also going to purify many things that are going on inside the body and give it that extra level of stability and support to the immune system. For those that are a bit more fancy, huh? C60. If you can make that venture, C60 is a little bit more expensive, but C60, that same effect of building a defense around the cellular structure. This is what C60 does and is known to do. Check your reviews as far as making sure you're getting some good C60. On the ground, in the physical, in the house, I'm on lockdown. What am I supposed to do? I'm on lockdown. Okay, this is the perfect opportunity. Instead of trying to run from it, like we were trained to run into the fire, not away from it. And as everyone may know here, I did deal with a situation with the fire just recently, and I was able to bring that fire under control, and I was able to even grow and expand further because of what that fire, the little bit that fire was able to consume. But if I had sat there in shock or ran away from the fire, I would have lost everything. So again, we were trained to run into the fire, not away from it. So in that respect, if you're dealing with, let's say, a situation on the ground where you feel like that lockdown may be imminent, some of the things that you need very quickly to stabilize yourself rather than other things, because you can go and buy 3 months worth of food. That's not a bad idea, right? Far as power is concerned, okay, first of all, let me rewind here. This is a drill, okay? Let me make sure. Let me see how many people are on this line. Okay, 109. At least somebody's listening here to convey to the other 100 people that are also supposed to be here exactly what they need to be doing. This is a drill. Okay, treat this like a drill. A while ago, we had the situation current in the house where there's earthquakes from time to time, right? And the house is seismically loaded, but who knows? And I realized that I would rather be outside than inside. Like, if I'm going to go, I'd rather get swallowed up by the earth than have some beam come and hit me in the head. It'd be other, the mind is very creative, so it'll take you through the whole process. So I realized that, man, I need to start doing drills. So of course, day in, day out, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, no drill. Now, to be honest, as a member of the resistance, that's all we should be doing is drills at time, because when you do drills, it doesn't mean all the time that the situation that you're dealing with may pan out into being the worst, horrible situation ever. It just means that you're actually prepared to, if it starts turning in that direction. So I would advise you, instead of freaking yourself out right now, to basically treat this like a drill. This allows you to be very serious about what you're doing, but not completely accept things that you haven't necessarily seen yet and manifest that into your space. Okay? You get where I'm coming from? It's a drill. So you're to treat it like a drill. And when we have a drill, we treat drills like it's really happening. That's the only way the drill can be effective. So this is how you go into the mode of what you would be doing anyway if you had to become sovereign, because this is really where we're at here. If you had to become sovereign, like I found myself, I was online and I was looking at, now I finally got the wattages down for solar panels and how long that takes to charge. Stuff that I had been meaning to do, but now I know how it works. And as I started thinking about the whole situation, if I just even bought a little bit of land and put a yurt there and then plugged a Yeti in and have my little power. And yeah, I wouldn't have all this stuff. This stuff maybe in a dystopian fallout, this would all be catching cobwebs and dogs and monkeys would be tearing it up. But I would be cool in my little yurt and dialing into nature. And if I was sustainable, I would feel great. So I started running myself through the drill about what it is that would make me sustainable rather than the big plans. If I had to think about this right now, what would this really entail? And what it would entail is me actually going to get a lot of land, just a plantel of land. And then even if I couldn't be there at this moment or start the process, at least paying someone to start the process. Now, I know someone out there, you should do it yourself. But hey, this is a drill. So in situations like this, you do what you can. So if you already had someone or even you yourself starting to grow the food, you can start to see how much your consumption, how much you're really consuming and how much you really need in the first place. So what I'm saying is that a personal farm is a good place to start. And if that's not going to be in your apartment building right now, which would maybe be a little bit difficult, then you can start thinking of getting a place that may not be these 100,000 acres that you was eventually going to buy in your mind and your manifestation. It may be something right now to get started on. But then so you can visualize this. And I'm just giving you the real facts here about how I even position myself and how I thought about this and how I changed my ideals about what I'm going to do right now since the drill has already started. The main thing is that if you get into another place and you're not able to produce any food there, even if you have land, if there's no food there, this presents a problem right away. So start dealing with that possible problem now. how am I going to eat? What am I growing that I can keep eating from? Sprouts come to mind here. Remember that sprout machine that you knew was going to help you with your health, but you've been putting that off too? Get the sprout machine. Now you have all these sprouts, and now you can start eating these sprouts and to see how much of these sprouts really can you eat before you need another form, another stable. So I'm saying if you're actually inside of an apartment building, you don't have any land yet, you don't have a position to buy any land, sprout machine then. And as I said, it's a big difference between what kind of 5-course meal I'm going to have tonight versus what do I need to actually survive. Okay, so you start thinking about things. And again, I haven't done all the homework for you because we're all in different environments and we have different things going on in our environment. But you start thinking about the things that you can keep producing in abundance. Again, it's a drill. So don't go into the whole, I'm in a frenzy, they're stealing all the toilet paper. I mean, start thinking, well, if all the toilet paper is gone, I would just kind of wash myself the way that we used to wash ourselves, and where countries that don't even use toilet paper actually wash themselves. They use the duvet thing. So you go get a duvet. I mean, what? So I'm just saying this is the perfect time to actually begin to work on your sovereignty and have a real reason to, because other than that, you wouldn't even do it. To be honest, I'm telling you, the mother was like, you wouldn't even be doing this. The grandma was like, you wouldn't even be doing this if I turn the heat up on y'all up in there. You got to do this at some point, my child. Okay, I'm going to start shaking this up a little bit, make some shake. So that way you can vibrate a little bit differently so you can feel the urgency of you getting into sovereignty, because you could have been here already. You could have been cleaning out yourself. You could have been boosting your immune system. All this stuff has to do with also the higher levels of your consciousness. So we'll get you there, and, you know, by all means. So here it is. So you have this. Now let me find my food supply. Like they even, you know, the myths of the reptilians, which I'm still trying to make heads and tails of. The reptilians are keeping us around because we're their food supply, and they like to keep their food supply close. I don't know if that's necessarily the story, but I know it is a good idea to keep your food supply close. So whatever it is that your food supply is, let's start seeing if you can create a food supply for yourself that you can sustain yourself with. And when you do this, spiritually, you level up anyway. So you have a reason to do it. You have focus also. I'm telling you this here so that you can start focusing. Because when Chicken Little is running around like the sky is falling, you will miss what would actually allow you to hold it up. So this is one thing. You have figuring out your food situation. Okay? And you'll be very creative, and it'll actually all work for you. And then you'll actually be there, and you'll lower even the amount of money that you're spending on rent, and then even and you're spending on food. And then when the situation cures itself, and it always does, every sickness we've had always get cured. That's a sign of the God. The planet is going to cure itself. But in this process, by the way, I doubt that there's actually any person here that has the coronavirus, by the way. Oh, I said it. But I don't think anybody here has it. This kind of lets you know where you're at with this. Okay, if you're accepting somebody else's scenario and what they're going through, then that's something that you've accepted. But I believe that every single person here is not suffering from anything, but does need a wake-up call about what they need to be doing about their sovereignty, since this is Sovereignty 2020. And instead of like with this big dream about how you're going to go to Bali, buy this house on stilts, and all these different things that are all dreams, they're not manifesting yet. Truth is going to show you how to create a cornerstone first, how to start somewhere, then feel comfortable with that, and then that fortify you to the level of being able to get to your next phase. And then how to not keep saying tomorrow, but starting right now and then doing it right where you're at, right? Because you need to. So Yeti also is a pretty strong backup or power system. Okay, I've been searching for this for a while. It's actually Goal Zero. Goal Zero is the name of the company. Maybe those can share a link here for that just to help me out with this as far as getting stuff to the chat here. I will only say it verbally. I'm not going to go to the screen share and everything. But Goal Zero is also on Amazon. Makes a line of products that actually solve the power problem. because sometimes you may even have your nebulizer that needs to be charged up. You may have somebody maybe on some support, respiratory support that they need power for. You may have a refrigerator with all your goods in it that you still need to power. So you're going to probably need some power in your whole sovereign scenario. But if you go and put solar panels all over your house and create a bunch of stuff that you can't even move around, maybe this is not even the most ideal way to do things. And I thought about all this. I've been thinking about this stuff for months and months and months, because I'm also out here off the grid anyway, and the power cuts out anyway around here from time to time. So I was like, well, shoot, if the power cut off, I still need to broadcast my message. So what am I going to do? What do I need? And what can I get to actually assist with that? And so I started investigating everything out there. And I started seeing all these whole house systems. And because I don't own the property that I'm actually on right now, I'm the custodian, but I'm not the owner. I didn't feel like I wanted to make that investment in building all these structures and all that. So I kept looking, and I found the Yetis. And they're briefcase solar panels, right? So how this works is that you have the Yeti power supply. The Yeti actually takes a power cords directly into it. They have the baby Yetis, which are like, I guess, Yeti 100, 200. These are based on the watts. 500, 1,000, 1,400, and 3,000. That's the big Yeti. And these units can deliver power and amperage. See, amperage is another big thing, because you can have power. Batteries have power in them, but it's not going to start up a drill. It's not going to start up a blender, because they need the amps. So Yeti pushes out the amps that devices need if they need a quick, strong demand of power, like induction devices. These are like things that where you're boiling water really fast. That's induction. They draw down a huge amount of power in a short period. They get the water boiling, but they need that amperage to be there. So the Yeti is capable of doing this. Also, the Yeti has solar panels, 100 watt and 200 watt solar panels. If this is something that you're going to be doing today, they're not available on Amazon, but go to B&H Photo. B&H Photo is where you find all the Yeti stuff actually in stock, because B&H, which is a Jewish organization, they keep heavy stocks of every product that they have on their site. So the 200 watt solar panel from Yeti is on B&H, but not on Amazon and not on their own site. I just want to give that information just in case you get there and you go into a panic, because a lot of stuff is actually gone now. A lot of people are already preparing. Colloidal silver is out of stock from mostly all companies until the 20th of March on Amazon. Now, colloidal silver is very easy to make, but it gives you an awareness that some people are already gearing up and know how to gear up. So the Yetis, again, are there. Now, of course, not everybody's going to have the money to go out here and buy a Yeti. And so you got to go into your alternative forms of power, your Bunsen burners, and to be able to cook the food, your candles. That stuff is basic, so you should already know what to do. I'm giving you also options of being able to maintain certain parts of your lifestyle, and also getting yourself to an awareness of what you could do as you continuously boondock or move off the grid, and how you would be covering your power sources. Okay, so you have the Yeti equipment. They have the solar panels. Also, I saw a YouTube video where a guy was using a propane generator by, I believe it was Ryobi. That's RYOBI. They were using this propane power generator by Ryobi to power a Yeti. And the guy could charge the Yeti, and the Yetis are, they hold a lot of power. This in case was the Yeti 1400. He can charge the Yeti with only a smidgen of the tank of the propane. He didn't do the math, but I'm sure that the actual the cost per wattage would be so low, it would far offset even how much you're paying for your power bills. So there are very proficient forms of alternative power that we have access to right now, because companies have developed that and perfected it. And even like a 200 watt solar panel can charge a 1,400 watt Yeti in one day at moderate sunlight. And again, these devices, you can plug your outlets and plug things right into them. Okay, so I'm just giving you like the drill, the equipment for the drill. Okay. Lastly, in relation to secret energy. What is secret energy doing about this? What is our line of offense, defense, or solutions that we're bringing into play? One, I have the developers fast tracking GeoChat right now. This is to solidify that organic grid around us, knowing who's around us that's a part of secret energy, which are basically contact points for those that are within our nucleus. Two, we're going to roll out a package since many people are actually at home now in foreign countries. And we're going to assess what countries that have been hit the hardest, such as Italy. And we're going to offer those people the opportunity to take University semester 1, possibly semester 2 for free. And this is because they're at home and they have this time on their hands. This is probably a great time to study, wouldn't it be? Because you would be able to absorb this. And the most important thing is it's about your metaphysical awareness. And we feel that this will be a very strong line of defense and refortification to a person's consciousness in this time that is laden with fear. What we're also doing is we are, of course, working with the First Nations to begin to get them stabilized also financially so that they can go to what they're doing and what they do best on this grand mothership that we're in, to actually let the planet do what it needs to do to actually heal and assist us in this time where we feel like that we're sick. Okay? So I'm going to explain that in detail. I just want to make sure I don't miss any of my notes. Okay. I wanted to speak directly, though, about you and your unique asset. This week, we made a lot of progress in getting ready to roll out soul coaching and having that set up properly with Secret Energy TV. Bringing that live station online, it's been so divine because even after I met with the mamos, one of the brothers and sisters that was there that was with us actually has already been connecting with many indigenous tribes, shooting a lot of very rare, very precious footage of them conducting ceremonies, them all getting together. And so we're going to be working with them to bring that form of consciousness into Secret Energy TV in order to also give them a window into our world, if you may, as far as us knowing what or learning what they're doing. So sharing their content and pushing their content out to the world, we're going to assist in doing that. And then also many of these master teachers are already in a position to begin to create courses or to do something online, believe it or not, that they actually are already stabilizing themselves in that way or are stabilized themselves in that way. So they'll be able to come forward and to begin to instruct us, and they will have free materials, and then they will also have materials that we can assist them. As we say, it's not, I'm paying to get something. That's the old paradigm. This is things that we can get from them that also assist them and stabilize them in their homelands and in their countries. The reason why I feel like this will be very efficient and effective, and this is why we developed this ecosystem, is because for us, $20 may not do that much. But for them, $20 is generally 7x. That's the beginning, like meaning that our currency is generally valued at 7 times more valuable than what they need to spend it on in their countries. And that's a rough estimate. It could go even higher than that. But it just means a little bit of what we can do to support them and also continuously gain more wisdom and awareness from them also allows them to sustain their tribes. And then this allows them to be at ease with what's going on the ground. And then as they're continuously doing their connections and doing their rituals and their honorings, etc., they're able to do that with a clear mindset and, actually not tapping into the mind. They're able to do that with zero thought again. So we cure them of the money virus. And this is what we already said that we were going to do, that Secret Energy is a bridge between the crazy world of the corporations and the empires and all of that that's going on out there and the holistic state of the heart of our conscious community, and not tainting not getting people involved in things that they don't know anything about that would taint them because they don't actually understand how it works and how to be free of that. So that's what we designed this to do. And I can only say it's a good thing we got started early. Trying to figure any of this out right now would be not possible. Seeing what's happening in the world, if I was just over here scrambling like, oh my goodness, we need to create like a Secret Energy TV and we need to have like more gateways open. We need to have like ways that people can actually put money in and then money is going to come out in this area. We already did that. So we're already on time. If I was off point, if I didn't listen to what was being told to me by higher self, I would be screwed right now. I would be in a frenzy. So if you don't see me in that mode, in that frequency, because that's not what is being shown to me, that I need to be in that. I'm sure that we're perfectly on time. So let's talk about also the financial thing. Because, we got a full 360 here. The financial scenario is something to the tune of this. Now, the bottom is already out on the market. Even crypto fell 40%, which is basically what Wall Street had pumped up. $9 billion worth of whatever, $900 million or whatever worth of Bitcoin was sold on HitBTC almost in one night. And that's what, boom, just dropped the floor out of the market. Those are all the stocks, bonds, hedge funds, and all that stuff that's been propped up on crypto. They exited the market, right? So when that drop happened, we're not even seeing the floor yet of where it's going to go down to. But eventually we will see the floor of cryptocurrency, okay? Also, meaning the floor, meaning the base of what the value is on the cryptocurrency without the height and the inflammation that is happening in that market. So I'm explaining the whole thing here for the financial geniuses. This is where you want to listen in. So, that the Dow Industrial and the index has dropped so many points that we are already in a recession. This is not... We may have a recession. We're in a recession based on the numbers. We're not in a recession based on when they finally tell everyone we're in a recession for the next truth bomb of demoralizing the people and scaring them to death. Okay, so we're already in a recession. We also saw oil drop 60% at this stage. This is things that you need to be aware of because we are on not just a fiat. Remember, we talked about this before. The dollar is backed by something. People have gotten to that notion that, it's just fiat. It's backed by nothing. They print it when they want. Not necessarily. It's backed by oil. So when oil dropped 60%, technically the dollar is supposed to drop 60%. Okay? So right now they're fending that off with these stimulus prop-ups. Okay? And we just have to explain everything here, like this $9 billion bill that they bought in to fund the coronavirus fallout of the financial system, to prop up more corporations with loans so they can make their payrolls, all this kind of stuff. But as I said before, and as we saw before all this happened, there was a world situation happening between the Allies and the Axis, even though you can't determine who's on what side or who should be called what. But just two different forces that are struggling. This is, of course, China struggling against each other. China, let's say North Korea, South Korea, Japan, all these different countries, Syria, Russia, all of what you've seen play out is basically between two different sides. The big qualm right now is the dollar. No one wants... Okay, give me one quick second here, 1 second. The station director wants to make sure that everyone understands, of course, that the biggest thing to actually do here in this phase that we're in is to tap deep into your heart. And we talked about how what situations do that are a bit more challenging for us is they bring us into a level of severity. They bring us into a level of even sometimes panic. But we want to make sure that we convey that even though we're talking about preparations, I give a 360. So I'm not just in one particular space. I'm not just in my heart. I'm not just in my mind. I'm not just outside of my body. I'm 360 degrees. And I also have to do that transmission in a timely manner. And then also, this is not the only transmission. So I'm not trying to push every single thing into this conversation. I'm just want to get you aware of what you should be doing now. We talked earlier about getting yourself together spiritually, making sure you understand what is the story, because many people are misinformed. This is why if you have to go over this again, you may have to go over this again and get very clear. Why are all these different things happening? How does it all connect? Because some feel like they need to be informed before they can be at ease. And then also when you're at ease, now you're able to connect and tap in, because as we're saying, if you're in a frenzy anyway, all you're going to do when you go out there is amplify the problem. Meaning that if you go into nature and you're already in the frenzy and you need answers to what you're going to do on the ground. Get those answers, and then when you clear yourself, you're going to be able to go into the quantifier and create a greater level of abundance, stability, and wherewithal as you project your energy there from the heart space. So if at any point during this conversation that was confused of not how to do that, and that is your primary line of defense, your objective, etc., whatever you want to call it, then I just wanted to make sure that that is known, because that was also stressed on this side, that we want to make sure that you know that. Finalizing here what I was saying in relation to actually, I have a note here and it just kind of jumps. So I'm going to need to get a refreshing very briefly of exactly where I was at before we started to.
We were talking about the oil being backed by the dollar being backed by the oil.
Okay, so thank you. This is all with everything considered, because there are going to be some here that wonder what they should do financially and how may these situations impact things financially. This is not a guess here. Things have been impacted. It's just not showing on the other end of like what goes on inside of your bank account. So different ways to prepare for this financially so you can still take care of your children and sustain things around you is for sure to start thinking about diversifying. This is for those that are still in, let's say, the system. You have a driver's license, you have a bank account. Start thinking about, again, on these two different sides, since the biggest issue, and that's what I was getting at here, is that the biggest issue that is occurring is that the rest of the world does not want to use the US dollar to back everything that they're doing. If you really understand how it works, even if you, let's say, go and buy oil, you have to buy oil in US dollars, any country that you're in. And so to get US dollars, you need to buy US dollars. You may not be familiar with this, because when the last time you bought money? Seems kind of strange, right? But anyway, they have to buy US dollars and they pay a certain percentage for that US dollar. This makes sure that the US gets a cut, and the people who run that structure get a cut from every single big transaction that happens in the world. So, of course, countries like China and Russia and these other countries are like, well, we want to come off that system and we want to make another currency the main currency. And whether that's a ruble, whether that's a yuan, we just don't want it to be a US dollar. Okay. So if we're seeing that happen in the field, we may put ourselves in a better position to fortify ourselves by diversifying, for those that do have capital, diversifying your funds between these two hemispheres. This would be to find something stable, like let's say USD coin and Coinbase, stable currencies that are easily exchangeable for any other form of currency. And this is somewhat of a deep dive, so we'll get into this later. Like if you have people that are already in Europe, if you have people that are already in Russia, if you have ways to open up accounts in those spaces, I would suggest that if you have that time and opportunity to actually open up those gateways, so that way if you want to move something from one place to another, that you can. Okay. Also, even if you don't have anything, already make this progress start happening, because you need to get ready to receive. This is not a time for a big loss for those who are quantifying their abundance. Get ready to receive. Also, for those that have been a little bit lazy and distracted about their uniqueness and have been procrastinating about things that they can create around their uniqueness, I would use this also as a motivator now to finish. Like if you have a book, if you have a course that you want to deliver, I would use this as a motivator to actually get that finally complete. A lot of times we can spend, time just procrastinating, saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to get this video developed. But when you see things happening like this in the world right now, this is a good time to get that done, because through the process that you're going through here, you will be able to put that in front of everyone, and they'll have an opportunity to see that, and they'll have an opportunity to assist you by patronizing your uniqueness, if we want to put that way. Okay. So these are things that, especially if you do have more time, maybe if your job said, hey, stay at home, this is a perfect opportunity. Don't stay there watching news all day. You have opportunity to connect yourself in with nature. You have the opportunity to work on your uniqueness, and you have an opportunity to create something that we can put in a place that will bring an alternative revenue stream to you. Also, what we're working on here on this side is the ability to not just be able to pay you in, let's say, like we pay out commissions in dollars or to your PayPal, but also to be able to do that in cryptocurrency, possibly in rubles and other things. We also have a strong member of the tribe who has developed something that he's proven to work over a year, and it works with cryptocurrency. It basically is a bot. It does all the trading for you. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to go through the psychological issue. You don't have to go through the energetic scenario. And it has been able to work on a downward trend market. That means that as the charts were going down last year, this bot was still able to take profits. We are working on this around the clock to bring in, basically he's going to let us white label it and bring it on our side. And this is another alternative form of revenue stream that you'll have an opportunity to use if you want to create another and generate another form of income with whatever kind of capital and savings that you may have put aside for that. Lastly, I would advise you at this stage, well, actually, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't advise you anything. I can only give you a little bit of advice about what I'm doing or what I would do if I was in a position. So I want that to be very clear. This is also a private group. So anything that I recommend, I'm recommended as if I was recommending it to a family member or a person that is a part of a private club. I want to make sure that I state that. As far as your credit stance, obviously, as you know, the Fed cut the rates. I think if they're not at 0.5, they're at 0%. So this means that banks with their propped up fake system are now in corporations that have these lines of credits open are actually able to borrow at 0%. So this means that they're also extending this percentages, which would be probably 1%, 2% or whatever they're making across the top, out to other crediting firms, let's say banks, let's say personal people with credit lines, etc. So what I'm saying is that this system may or may not be surviving here in the next 2 years because of the financial issues that they've created with how the society is structured. So if you've been thinking about drawing capital in order to stabilize yourself, buy land and do things with that you may need to do to prepare yourself from the future, I don't think that that is a bad idea, if you get where I'm coming from. So what I'm saying is that if you have the ability to open up lines of resources and you need those lines of resources to stabilize yourself from a sovereignty level, I would seriously consider doing that. And that's as much as I'll say about the financial matters and what's taking place there. Petrodollar credit lines and those kind of things and how they're affecting things, diversifying, also having more than one revenue stream, finishing off your uniqueness, making this as a motivative component for you to complete something that you've been working on that you'll be able to share with us inside of Secret Energy TV. So family, since it's at 9:30 now, and this is a great opportunity to close the space, so that way actually can get in action. It's very little sleep for me. It's not like that I need it, but I want to make sure that we're continuously delivering. Also, that everything that we talk about, that we put into action right away, and that we also finalize many of the things that we've already started. As what was mentioned earlier, this is a great time for you to, where you've been observing, so you can absorb and dissolve a bit of the mysteries, the myths, the worries, the confusions. Take time to be able to do that for yourself with all things considered. I did not produce for you today any problems. I produced only solutions. As I said, if you treat it as a drill, you can move with the urgency that's necessary to see yourself go into a greater level of sovereignty, and you'll even have fun with it. Like I was actually having fun with sitting in the state of my consciousness that if I made certain decisions and put myself into a position to make certain decisions, that I would be overall able to sustain myself, because you really don't want to be also old in life, 70, 80 years old, still trying to figure out how you're going to eat from a grocery store. So this has to happen anyway. If everything recovers and everything goes back to normal, I would still be in a better state anyway, because I would know that how this reality kind of treats its inhabitants. Now, if you didn't know that already, of course, we have a thorough education on what exactly is going on in this government and what's happening in this world. But for us personally, sometimes that doesn't become real. Sometimes that doesn't become clear until actual situations happen that really show the true colors, if you may, of what we're dealing with. So I feel like right now we're seeing the true colors of what the reality is like. And that's great because it's strengthening us and it's allowing us to get rid of all of the illusions. We can now prepare again for our sovereignty and our advent through sovereignty. We can boot up our networks that we know are the support for each other. We can reestablish our connection again and make sure it's firm with our mother and our grandmother and our ancestors. We can also assist the First Nations and these different communities that have always been here and these different nations that have always been here, keeping that form of awareness. The reason why, again, out of many reasons we really want to assist them is that everything that you're seeing is a state of consciousness. Happiness is a state of consciousness. We have happiness because others choose to live their lives happy. If everybody chose to live their life in depression, we would all be depressed. So taking that one principle alone, our entire reality of joy, happiness, production of children, abundance, all the things that we need happen because there are many people in the world really living that. But there are beings in the world that are equally almost as numerous that they're playing video games. They're not in touch with reality. They're figuring out what they're going to do with their nails. They're tapped completely into their ego and disconnected from the mother. And so because of that, it puts us in a position to know the difference between those two because that's the contrast, but also know what we need to do at this point in order to be able to connect ourselves. So I believe that I made everything clear. I'm going to go ahead and exit from the conversation only because and keep the circle going and keep the energy building just to stay in alignment. My mind is kind of like now getting a little diverted into something else. And so I want to honor the space by making sure that I stay clear on this entire projection. And also for everyone to know that the only thing that I can do is my best. And I feel like that is more than enough. It's for each and every single one of us. If we feel called to do something, maybe you feel like today that there were some great things that I presented, but you didn't like the way that I presented something. This means that the world is only waiting for your level of the presentation. I can only present things the way that I know how. I cannot do everything for everyone the way that they want it to be done. Actually, I'm glad that I got to that point because that actually is a big thing in this closing the space on the wisdom of the Mammals, since this is the second and final recording of on this series. What I was able to gain from the Mammals so much that was so instrumental to my soul, amongst many things, was to do you. To be you, to not be trying to be somebody else. Because let's say, for instance, it took the Mammal his whole life to be the Mammal. How long would that take you? A whole life. Do you have a whole life? No, you do not. You have your life. So if you go run off and try to be somebody or something that you're not, it's going to take you too long to be something that you'll never be able to be. All you have to do is be yourself. And don't let anybody tell you that what makes you you is bad, is not correct, is wrong, especially when you're working on yourself. The way other people do it is how they do it. If you accept mentors in your life and they give you advice, you feel that advice is great and it sits with you, take that advice. But always remember where you're at on the path. So that way, if somebody else is doing something else, you don't feel like you're doing the wrong thing. And then you go and try to do what they do. And then that throws you off your path. The most important thing is for you to be secure about who you are and what you're doing. I'm very secure about who I am and what I'm doing. I'm doing nothing different than what I've always been doing. I'm moving with urgency, which is great. I love that second wind. I love that third, that fourth, that fifth wind. I also love this greater level of clarity, like the center versus the outer rings, how things affect the outer rings. It's like the bark on a tree. The outside bark on the tree is the one getting the most exposed to everything happening in the environment. the center of the tree is most protected. So too, your consciousness is designed the same way. On the surface, you may see flaws. You may see things that are actually out of alignment, but internally, everything is still sound and perfect. You have to be able to get into that space. Find your Mount Meru. Find your center and operate from that space. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations Tribe, we're going to keep this going. Next week, we have another lineup of powerful presentations and then also actions as we get closer to booting the worldwide meditation. We need everyone's support in that. And then also bringing Secret Energy TV online. So that way there is a space for us to keep sharing and what many others also have shared. Joy, Neva, Sean, every person here has shared something or has the ability to share. Now what we're seeing in the reality gives you the motivation. Also realize, last but not least, when the stock market is going like this on most things, the things that are going up is the online stuff right now. Netflix is going up. All this, what you do at home is going up. This is a perfect time for us to launch home education for children. Before, you may have stiff competition. Right now, you have stiff competition because people are going to physical schools. But now that there's no school, I looked online. There definitely wasn't any conscious schools for children. But there was no online spiritual school for children at all. We've been talking about this. But we also know if we start something like that, we may struggle a bit from a resource level because we got to get people to actually want to do that. Now, if we start it, I'm sure it will catch like wildfire because we have all these parents at home pulling their hair out. I've been hearing some wildest stuff. You actually see the truest colors of things, but some of the parents were complaining that they had to take care of their children and that they weren't in a position to take care of their children and do their work at the same time. Well, that's exactly what we know because that's how the society was designed. But now they're at home, they're pulling their hair out about how am I going to entertain this kid that's going 1,000 miles an hour? And obviously it's time for them to ground into the space of their responsibility. Also, lastly, I did not mention something, and it's about like the whole financial situation. If the money does come and doesn't come or does come, what we can pretty much see is that there's a model happening right now where the states have been propping up the citizens. This means that for the U.S. now, they've waived the interest rates on student loans. They did it in Italy. They're now waiving mortgages. So we're going to see this process of as this cycle swaps itself into something new where there's it's a holding moment. It's a time for everyone to assess where they're really at. And you won't have that stress of needing to be somewhere, needing to pay for something for at least a few months. You'll find these supports that will come from everywhere, but use that time wisely because it's like bought time. It's already paid for. And in this period, it's a perfect opportunity for you to get the stuff together that we've been talking about within this group would be the best decisions to make. But now that you're focused, it's totally different than when you're not focused. I don't want you to walk away from this conversation feeling like the same way you walked into this, especially if it's less. I mean, you increase anyway from what you've gained here. But if you get off this line and you still feel like you're dealing with the same problems, maybe you need to go back over this again because it is not the same. You have solutions on all levels. And if you can't start somewhere, crank it up in another level. If you're over there like, well, I'm out of money, I don't have anything to do. Crank it up spiritually. Remember what we said. Start getting your words aligned with your intentions. Stop doing the vain recital. Now that you got a little energy and urgency with you, now you can send the energy into really entreating this. It works, but it does need you to be true to it. So that's us being true to each other. This is us being here for each other in this time where we need each other. First Nations, Second Nations, all the way through infinity. We learn that we have a responsibility with each other. And I see for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that what is happening right now in the world is making this a better place. And that may seem the craziest thing to people unless they've been all night sojourning on a journey. In a ceremony, you're throwing up, your mind's all in disarray. This medicine is working with you. The medicine is strong. You have to sing. You're tired. But when the morning comes, when the sun rises, when the final honoring takes place, and we're all standing in the space and the medicine has fully healed us, now we find that joy on a level that we've never seen it before. That's exactly what's happening. So, Wholeness Tribe, we'll come in, like I said, next week, and we'll do some direct, if you have some questions about things as stuff unfolds. As I said, we always have solutions, so we're going to stay in action. Thank you so much for sharing the space, and I'll be speaking with everyone soon. Wholeness.
Wholeness. Love you so much.
Love you too.
Wholeness,
Family.
brother. Wholeness.
Wholeness. Wholeness. Love tribe.
Wholeness.
Wholeness family.
Wholeness family.
Wholeness.
Yes.
Wholeness.
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 Bonus.